This was like a real palate cleanser to just go back and do something that was, again, in a very sort of guerrilla style. It was just really liberating to shoot that way. There was a very small crew. Everywhere we went, I hope it's clear that we were there, even on the airplane, shooting on the airplanes. And it has a very, the movie has a very stolen aesthetic. We stole most of what we shot.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a young woman is thrust headlong into an international conspiracy in director Neil Burger's thriller, Inheritance. The film tells the story of Maya, who suddenly finds herself at the center of an international conspiracy when she learns that her father was once a spy. In her quest for answers, Maya becomes a target and must travel the globe, mastering her father's skills and unraveling the mysteries of his past. In addition to Inheritance, Burger's other directorial credits include the feature films The Marsh King's Daughter, The Upside, Divergent, Limitless, and The Illusionist, the pilot episode of the series Billions, and episodes of The Agency. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Burger spoke with director Sarah Pirozek about filming Inheritance. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
So, as I was watching this amazing film, most recently your pictures have been big studio projects, the Divergent series, The Upside, blue chip television such as The Agency, Billions, that sort of thing. But then I was looking at this and thought it really is full circle going back to your first film, the Interview with an Assassin. And with the documentary feel, the urgency, the sense of urgency, the misdirects, they were both projects that you wrote, created. Mm-hmm. Can you talk maybe about going back to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is the first movie I did was called Interview with the Assassin, and it's a fake documentary about a guy who claims to be the grassy knoll gunman, the purported second assassin of Kennedy, and people believed it was real. It was done really like a fake documentary, or it was done like a documentary, and like a cinema verite documentary, and we did it with a really guerrilla crew. We went to everywhere where it takes place. We were there, and it was incredibly fun to do. We shot it on video at the time. This was 20 something years ago. Shooting it on like a consumer camera and then blowing it up, and it looked great. And so you're right. I mean, I've done other movies like Limitless and The Illusionist and these other things you mentioned. And after the movie that I did previous to this was done called The Marsh King's Daughter, was done during COVID. And it was really like not an enjoyable experience to be shooting, being tested every day and all of it. It was in a big lumbering production out in the woods and
in a swamp,
in a marsh. But anyway, so this was like a real palate cleanser to just go back and do something that was, again, in a very sort of guerrilla style. And, anyway, it was just really liberating to shoot that way. There was a very small crew. Everywhere we went, I hope it's clear that we were there, even on the airplane, shooting on the airplanes. And it has a very, the movie has a very stolen aesthetic. We stole most of what we shot.
Yeah. When I was watching it, and you've kind of moved on to my next question, did it feel, well, apparently it did feel liberating to be not with, Neil and I knew each other years ago when we directed TV commercials, and you have a huge crew and a lot of white cube trucks filled with lots of stuff. Yeah. And did this feel frightening? Did it feel unsupported? Did it feel exhilarating?
No, it was exhilarating. Just because we would shoot, the whole idea was to be able to see the world, not, when you have a film crew with all these trucks and crews and things like that, everybody's just standing around looking at you make the movie. You're not able to really see the world as it is. And so the whole idea about shooting it in this fashion was to be in these places, no boom mic, no lights. The crew was just kept very far away. It was, a cameraman, whoever the actor was, often Phoebe Dynevor, and then me sort of trailing behind, and then looking at it on an iPad, and then a sound man even further back, and then the AD, the wonderful Mary Kerrigan, who did Nomadland and lots of other great movies, and then she was just sort of like kind of around and about, but basically we had no profile really. And then the rest of the crew were like a block away or 2 blocks away, so it was fantastic. So, and it's scripted and tightly scripted because it's ostensibly a thriller. So all those puzzle pieces have to fit together, but it's also very much like whatever happened. If somebody bumped into her or spoke to her or asked her for directions, the idea was to stay in character and just whatever happened.
Like the guy in the market in Delhi who said, "I'll go with you anywhere" or something.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, but also somebody when she was running away from, when she was supposed to be handing off the just a little bit later in that same scene, the hard drive to the guy in Delhi, and then he gets arrested and she starts to run. Somebody really, thought that she was being chased by the police and tried to grab her, and she sloughed them off. And anyway, it was exhilarating.
That's fantastic. I mean, to state the obvious, maybe folks here don't know, this entire movie was shot on iPhones. Yes.
Yeah, it was shot on an iPhone. And and it, there's been other movies that have been shot on iPhones, plenty of other movies shot on iPhone, but perhaps not like an international thriller that goes around the world. So we'll take that credit. But the idea again was not to, the reason we shot it on an iPhone was not like merely as a gimmick or a substitution for a motion picture camera, but because it gave us access, because we could be in that crowded Cairo market and nobody, for the most part, paid any attention to us. Or we could shoot on that plane, because that was shot, those scenes were shot over the Atlantic. We were in flight on a plane without permission. And we were able to do it because we were everybody's had no stabilization on it. Really, the cameraman, a guy named Jackson Hunt, who's a really talented young cinematographer, he just held it in his hand. No handle, no nothing. Because again, we didn't want to draw any attention to ourselves.
It's so fascinating. I was looking at his work when I was looking through your IMDb, and he is very new. I mean,
he just shot one feature before I'd done, but he'd also done things like where he had shot Google commercials like in Singapore or in the Ukraine before the war. And, he's sort of all over the place with various different technologies and super smart and talented.
He seems, the film is perfect. And I looked at the Crystal Moselle trailer that he had shot, I think just before or just after your film. I've forgotten the name of it,
Me
but
too.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's Black in Bulgaria or something like that. In the Black Sea.
Yes,
the
that's
Black
right.
Sea.
That's
right.
actually, I think he shot that afterwards, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But also beautiful with a documentary feel.
Yeah.
But yes, because there's so much visual storytelling in a film that has to drop hints without being overly obvious. So
Right.
I think that he did a great, you both together did a great job.
Yeah. No, he's talented.
He did a great
we had a
job.
great, everybody who was on the crew, the production designer, he had a rolling bag with the props in it. He did it all himself. The same with the costume designer, had like the garment bags over her arms. And in certain places we would, crew up but often there was about 13 of us that
Right.
sort of went around the world.
Right.
And, went wherever she went, we went and filmed.
It sounds fantastic, but it seems like maybe your next film, you'd want to do something with a trailer and a honey wagon. And
Maybe. No, I'd like to do another. It's not, it wasn't, we were very precise in the way we did it. And we weren't there's no improv in the movie. As I said, it's tightly scripted, but we wanted it to have kind of this sort of caught live feel, this sort of immediacy of, and then this kind of stolen feel as well.
Mhm. No, it felt, because everything was being revealed and there's so many misdirects, the sense of urgency had to always be there. And, it feels like getting here tonight from the subway to arrive for this. It was a great thing. What else did I want to ask you? Oh, how did the story come to you? Because you wrote this also.
Yeah, I co-wrote it with a guy named Olin Steinhauer. And Olin is a kind of like a contemporary John le Carré. I mean, obviously John le Carré is a legend, but he is Olin is an espionage novelist. He also created the show Berlin Station. He did a movie a couple years ago called All the Old Knives that I developed with him, but then I couldn't end up directing it. But he also writes novels. So anyway, we wrote it together. The original idea was something during COVID, and I've talked about this a little bit before, where most intelligent directors would like, okay, how are you going to shoot something during COVID? 2 people maybe in the woods would be a safe way to do it. And my feeling was like, oh no, I want to go around the world and see like what's the new normal. And so even though we didn't end up shooting it, in the thick of COVID, thank God, but that was sort of where it came from, was like, I wanted to see like what was going on in the world, what that looked like. And, but I didn't want to do it as a documentary. I wanted to kind of have a story that took me where I followed somebody around the world. And I wanted to, and in order to see, at least at the time when I was thinking about it in early or sort of mid 2020, like in order to see whatever was going on in the world, there was no way I could shoot it in a normal way. Because again, as I mentioned before, you as a film production, you just draw attention to yourself by all the equipment and people and all that. So I was like, okay, how can you do it? And so the idea of shooting it on an iPhone was like in the original conception of the movie.
And I know I asked you about this before, but can you just talk about, did you use any lensing? Did you have any gear? How many phones did you use? Right. What was your DIT process?
Yeah, we used, it was shot on an iPhone 13. We did not use any lenses. We used the software or the app Filmic Pro, and which we thought was best to make it look great when we blew it up. The lenses didn't seem to kind of work as well with Filmic Pro, so we just used the native lenses on the iPhone, and we really only used the there's 3 lenses. There's a wide one, which is like I can't remember what it is, a 13 millimeter. And then the medium one is a 26 millimeter. And then the longer one is a 77. We only used the whole film is shot on just one lens because the quality of the other 2 wasn't good enough. So then that became like some kind of, a sort of a limiter for us. It was like, okay, how are we going to shoot it? Like, what if somebody's across the street, and how do we make that work? Yeah,
like the shot in Seoul with her father.
Yeah. So that was like, so that was like, we just embraced it. It was like, okay, we're not going to, also because we were shooting very quickly because we didn't want to be noticed. There was sort of a different shooting style. It wasn't like we came in and we did, well, here's a wide shot and then an over the shoulder and then a close up of you and things like that. We just didn't shoot that way.
You chose not to do the coverage, the classic coverage.
There's no classic coverage. There's actually, for the most part, deliberately no match cutting. Or continuous cutting. Anyway, so, and we did that so that we could be quick on our feet, so that when we were shooting on the airplane, in a way, the style came out of like, what was the most difficult place we were going to shoot? And that was going to be on the airplane. And we were going to have to be sort of, very much shoot from the hip. And so then that determined, and we weren't going to be able to do coverage. And so it was like, okay, so then that is going to be the look of the movie. We're not going to sort of shoot one way. And so even if we were in a hotel or an apartment where we could have had lights or boom mics, we didn't. And we could have put it on a dolly, but we didn't. We still shot it and covered it, as it were, in the same way.
I really noticed that
no stabilization or anything.
Right. As you settled into the film, it really had a rhythm that I think was defined by the style of shooting, because you would be with her very, very close up at some moments, then sort of breathe back and allow her to sort of leave the frame.
Right.
But then there's this rhythm really happened throughout the film that was helped in storytelling. Maybe talk about your editor a little bit, or...
Well, my editor's a guy from New Zealand named Nick Carew, who sometimes lives in New York, but now he's in New Zealand. And he had, again, just shot a few small films, and he had worked at, I don't know, he had worked at Vice, making his own documentaries there. And he's just a super talented guy who understood this sort of aesthetic that I was interested in, and then brought his own thing to it. And so, again, it was a matter of again, this sort of caught live feel to it, or this you are there feel. It's almost like the way you would shoot your, child's birthday party, not in a primitive way, but just that you were just, when she's talking, it's like on her. And then when he talks, it's like you come to that person. And that's the way we built it. And it was all designed very specifically, but designed to have that kind of caught live feel to it.
I think it really lends itself just to the story engine, a visual story engine, which I think worked incredibly well.
Thank you.
Did you ever think about rigging the camera on her?
No, because it wasn't really, you were saying that sort of like, Interview with the Assassin is a fake documentary, and this is shot on iPhone, but it was definitely intended not to feel like a docu-style thing. We definitely wanted, because to me, that sort of always has like a sort of a third-party observational feel to it. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be like firmly in her shoes, or on her shoulder, or on her ear, or in her point of view.
Firmly behind the fourth wall.
Well, I wanted to be with her, and I wanted, the audience to be with her as she went around the world. So again, that was a very specific thing. So, we had there's all sorts of great things you could do with the iPhone, crazy things you can do. But again, the idea was, okay, so what was going to serve the story and and her emotional story the best.
And how satisfying being able to look at it right away and know what you got, and really being able to mentally edit it in a way.
Yeah, we did do that. It was fairly similar to, I had an iPad that was, synced to the camera. So I was sort of watching, but it's really in a way no different than having a video assist or something like that. And it was just, we just had a smaller footprint, and we were incredibly nimble. And we shot when, if we were shooting at sunset, there wasn't like, okay, we're going to bring in the big lights and, gel the windows amber. It was like, we're going to shoot at sunset. We're going to make it work at sunset. Or if we were shooting at, 4 a.m. on the streets of Cairo, we didn't shut down the streets of Cairo. We were like, had a late dinner and waited around, and then at 4 a.m. got to work, which was great. Sounds
good. Also, when you have pyramids as your backdrop, you really can't go wrong.
Yeah.
That shot was incredible.
Thank you.
Really gorgeous. I think you mentioned, I saw another Q&A with you, and you mentioned that you just happened to arrive when a lot of the tourists had left.
Well, we were trying to, originally, you get at these things, and they were like, okay, they were going out there in the morning. And so, and that was important to me at the time. And so we were like, okay, we'll shoot it at, 4 p.m. when the sun is lower in the sky, and as if it was, earlier in the day. And as it turned out, there was, at 4 p.m. rather, at the pyramids, the place is closed, but we were able to, or not closed, but it is closing. And so we were able to keep shooting and do that, do those shots.
Right. And, this is such a nimble project, and you're the writer of it and the producer on it, and the originator with your fellow writer. Was it easy to find funding, put the project together? Were people enthusiastic to get on board? Or were they saying to you, no, Neil, if you put a few more $1 million into your budget, then we'll come on board?
No, actually, it was the easiest thing that I've ever gotten made. It so happened there's Miramax financed it completely. And there's a guy that was head of Miramax named Bill Block, who's been around forever. He's done all sorts of different things. He's not there anymore, but he read the script. I'd done a movie with him before called The Lucky Ones. And he was like, how much does this cost? And he's a very eccentric guy. And I told him, he said, let's do it. He read it over like Christmas or something like that. And we were shooting in June.
Well, it's really, it's so appealing and satisfying having an adult film that you can watch, a grown-up film that's a bit of a thinker that I think we're all hungry for. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for him funding it.
Indeed.
And did you get the funding pre-casting? Did you have Phoebe and Reese attached?
Well, I mean, that's always, like, let's make the movie, but then you need to have somebody. And at the time, Phoebe was coming off of Bridgerton and was, and she did it. You know how it is. It's like this actor plus this actor equals this budget. And so, it was a very small budget. And, when we got her, it was like, great, let's do it.
And she's young enough also to be challenged by it, thinking this is going to be an exciting adventure.
No, she was game. I mean, to do what they did was crazy. We just, we're at JFK and we're, that scene where she steals the sunglasses in that store, she really stole them. So and it was planned, it's scripted, and we had done like we went around the world twice in prepping the movie and, figuring it all out. And so we had been in that same store. We knew what sunglasses she was going to take. And twice. And then we were in the lounge and, we'd gone through security. So she didn't have her wire on or anything like that. But in the lounge, we put on a wire. And then it was like, okay, let's go. And we walked out sort of through the concourse with her, and then, with Jackson, the DP, following, and then me a little bit behind. And then she went in there, and I had sort of told her, like, because it wasn't just going to be like a grab the sunglasses and run. She was going to do it in a very specific way that we had, talked about doing it. And she did it. And then we just quietly put them back, and nobody knew the difference that we had done it.
Yeah, you don't want to get arrested in the airport. Yeah.
No, that you don't want to.
Do we have time for some questions? Okay, great. Maybe we should have some questions here. Does anyone have anything? I have more thoughts if you guys don't, but were there any logistics that you had to deal with in stealing shots? Did you get into any trouble? We actually
didn't get into any trouble. And obviously certain things like, for example, the restaurant in Egypt, the restaurant was open. The restaurant knew we were shooting. We took sort of a table on either side of it, but the rest of the restaurant was open. So in that case, it wasn't quite stolen, but it just had sort of a loose feel to it. However, on that day, we arrived in the afternoon or the evening to shoot that scene. And there were two soldiers, Egyptian military, outside blocking the door, and they would not let us in because the restaurant basically the military owned the underlying land that the restaurant was on, and the restaurant had thought, oh, well, it's such a small sort of production, such a small profile, we're not going to tell them that we're doing it. We're just going to, take the location fee, and so that needed a little work from our Egyptian fixer, but they solved it. But we didn't really have it, and we had contingencies for like if suddenly on the plane they weren't going to let us shoot. I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'll do that scene, but in general everything went off, and we were really so for that plane, for example, the plane scenes. We knew that like we had 28 minutes between like when they turned off the seatbelt sign and when they were going to start serving food, and that we needed to get that first scene done then. And then the food was going to take X number of minutes, and then before they turned off the lights for, to do the second scene. So we were logistically really tight, and in order to get those stolen shots, or some of them were stolen, some of them weren't.
And also, I guess you guys might have appreciated too, all the free extras you had. That table of gentlemen in the restaurant.
Yeah, right.
They were just
people. They were there having dinner. Yeah. So.
They were fantastic.
Yeah.
Post-production, did you have to do a lot of audio work?
Not too much, actually. It was pretty good. We had the sound guy, Joe File, was really great, and we had really great the wires, and his sound work was really good. I mean, the sound is not quite as dynamic as it might have been if it had been done with a boom, and I was aware of that when we were mixing. But in general, post-production was pretty much like post-production on anything. Once all that footage was loaded in, we edited on an Avid and all the rest of it. But no, there was a little bit of ADR, but in general, we were in pretty good shape.
Any more questions? Okay, this gentleman here. So really, the question is, how did you steal these shots? The chase through Delhi, going through JFK, etc.
Well, so you can see from the credits that the movie is a professional movie, and there's a ton of people that worked on it. We had a production service company in each city that was, Cairo and Delhi and Seoul, taking care of us and all of that. And then we tried to have them get out of the way. So for the Delhi motorcycle chase, it was shot on open roads in Delhi with an incredible stunt driver, but mostly with Phoebe with him. And we try to have a little sort of perimeter kind of traveling with them for safety's sake. But it is mostly on open roads. But again, those roads were all chosen very specifically, but we did it. And to tell you the truth, I don't know how much, again, it was done through the production, I think we had a certain amount of permission maybe to be on those roads, but we didn't shut anything down. In certain cases, like in the alleys and things like that, where it was very tight, I think we did have some kind of control. So it depended. And then with the passport control, certain of those were real and certain of those were created. So for the JFK thing, giving away my secrets, she comes down into JFK and gets into line, and we're really there and we're stealing that. And then, but when she steps up to the customs agent, I guess that's what you call them, that we staged that somewhere else, but tried again to shoot it in a sense of whereas though in Egypt, those were real and stolen, which is why you can't really see the person we're sort of, staying back a little bit. So it depended. So we stole it when we could, and we kind of created it when we couldn't.
How many shooting days?
We shot it over about 2 months. So, but I think it's probably about 32 days or something like that.
Actual shooting days, yeah. And did you have any time for rehearsal?
Yeah, we rehearsed in New York for we had the actors. It was really just Reese and Phoebe, and this Jess. We had her. We had the three of them, and we had rehearsals for while we were doing fittings and things like that in New York before we went.
Yeah,
Kirsty Bryan. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
Yeah,
Kirsty, we got you. The relationship that they had was so important because it was such a pivot point.
Which one? The sisters?
The father-daughter.
The
father-daughter, yeah. And her need and her desire for this love and approval. Because if she didn't have that, we wouldn't buy the movie. So, yes, I liked how you set up in the very beginning her kleptomania and her...
Right. She's a black sheep and so is he, And so for her, she's trying to, it's like... That's why, the inheritance stuff is about the money, about all that, but it's more about who is she her mother? Or is she her mother or is she her father? So.
Well, it was such a satisfying film. In the very end, when I watched it originally, there was a young man next to me, very young man, watching it, and he was eating his popcorn, and the popcorn was just going down, and everything at the end, he's like, yeah. So it's
good.
It's a satisfying popcorn movie as well as an intellectual thinker and a thrill ride. So thank you so much, Neil.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys again for being here.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.